Okay, so tonight's talk, it's a very short, let's say, introduction to the thought of Pope Benedict, Joseph Ratzinger, at the school of Pope Benedict XVI, theologian, writer and priest. So this is an introductory talk. I may have to shorten it a bit, but we'll see how we get on, okay? So just to know a little bit about him, he was born on the 16th of April, 1927, the youngest of three children. His brother Georg, I don't know how you pronounce that, and his sister Marie. So he had a brother and a sister, and his father was a policeman. At age 14, he was conscripted into Hitler Youth, the movement. This was compulsory under German law, just to make that point. As a seminarian later, he was drafted into the German anti-aircraft corps. Okay, so he had to do some military service even when he was a seminarian. He spent a number of months in a prisoner of war camp, and he was released in 1945. He was ordained a priest in Friesing, Bavaria, in 1951. Okay, keep going. So a little bit of biographical detail, okay? So he's a scholar, he's an intellectual. In 1953, he defended his doctoral thesis on the people and the house of God in St. Augustine's doctrine of the church. He's more influenced by St. Augustine probably than any other theologian. He was professor then of theology in Bonn, Tübingen, Munster and Regensburg. He was fluent in several European languages: German, English, French, Spanish, Italian, also at ease with classical Latin, Greek and Hebrew. So he is a scholar, like he is an intellectual, okay? He played the piano with a preference for Mozart and Beethoven. Okay, I didn't realize that, okay. As Pope, he possessed a pilot's license. He even flew the papal helicopter. I'm so told, okay. Could check our sources on that one, okay. But I think it's probably true, okay. He had two cats as Pope. He liked cats. One which he found as a stray in Rome. Okay, so a little bit of trivia that you wouldn't normally know about Joseph Ratzinger, okay. So his style, this is important, okay. What kind of style does he bring to the pontificate, to his theological writings? What's his main kernel? What's his main center? What's he trying to communicate? And this is it, okay? This sums up quite well, okay? According to Ratzinger, God is not recognized because he is a summum bonum, okay? Scholastic term for the highest good, okay? That is able to be grasped and demonstrated with exact formulas. But because he is a you, who comes forward and gets himself recognized, okay, the personal character of God's revelation. In the dialect of Bavaria, one would say, okay, high scholasticism, okay, lots of formulas, we could say, lots of tough work to get through to the axis of the thing, okay. Scholasticism wasn't his beer, okay. He's not interested in defining God by abstract concepts. An abstraction, he once told me, this writer says, Alfred Lappel, an abstraction, he once told me, didn't need a mother. It's quite good, actually. Incarnation, okay? God in flesh. God as one of us, okay? Okay, he's talking about Augustine then. I think he says about Augustine's right. This is why he's so drawn to Augustine, okay? The passionate, suffering, questioning man is always right there, and one can identify with him, okay? Because Augustine, when he writes, it's kind of like his heart is on his sleeve. You see it all going on at once, okay? He's very passionate, you could say, in his discoveries about God, okay? And, okay, keep going. Why did he pick the name of Benedict when he became Pope? He gives this reason, which it tells a little bit about his pontificate as well, okay, looking back over it, okay. So filled with sentiments and awe and thanksgiving, I wish to speak of why I chose the name Benedict. Firstly, I remember Pope Benedict XV, that courageous prophet of peace during World War I, who guided the church through turbulent times of war. In his footsteps, I place my ministry in the service of reconciliation and harmony between peoples. Okay, that was part of his pontificate. Yes, that's true. Additionally, I recall Saint Benedict of Nursia, co-patron of Europe, whose life evokes the Christian roots of Europe. I ask him to help us all to hold firm to the centrality of Christ in our Christian life. May Christ always take first place in our thoughts and actions. Okay, so his understanding of Europe which had been Christendom, Latin Christendom at one stage, is that it's been de-rooted. Okay, it's been taken away from its own identity. It's been taken away from its own past. What Latin Christendom Europe was, okay? And that's a concern of his pontificate as well, okay? Which really takes Christ out of our history, okay, as Europeans. So he's very concerned about that in his pontificate. Keep going. Okay, the essence of Christianity, okay, get very simple. For such a scholar, such an intellectual man, he says the essence of Christianity is not an idea, not a system of thought, not a plan of action. The essence of Christianity is a person, Jesus Christ himself, okay? He's quoting one of his favorite writers, Romano Guardini there, on Christ, okay? To become truly real means to come to know Jesus Christ and to learn from him what it means to be human. Okay, so a lot of his thinking and thought would be about how does Jesus Christ teach us the humanum? How do we learn the human project over and over again from Christ? How do we find a Christ-centered humanism with all the humanisms we could borrow or find? Okay, how do we find a one that's centered on Christ, and how do we learn that? Okay, that's repeated, I suppose, in his teaching and his writings. Keep going.
Did I skip? Sorry.
Yeah, skip. Did you skip something?
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. Okay.
I clicked end.
Oh, did you? You can edit this, Harry. Yeah, I was thinking something wrong there. Okay, yeah. Oh, Helen, for heaven's sake. Okay, next one then. Yeah, okay, yeah. Okay. And then the relationship with Christ, okay? This is from his inaugural homily as pontiff, okay? And it's worth just quoting because he's actually a wonderful writer. He's very succinct in his writing, very, very clear. Are we not perhaps all afraid in some way? You know, think of young people hearing this homily, okay? Think of all young people over the world. If we let Christ enter fully into our lives, if we open ourselves totally to him, are we not afraid that he might take something away from us? Are we not perhaps afraid to give up something significant, something unique, something that makes life so beautiful? Do we not then risk ending up diminished and deprived of our freedom? No. If we let Christ into our lives, we lose nothing, nothing. Absolutely nothing of what makes life free, beautiful and great. No. Only in this friendship are the doors of life opened wide. Only in this friendship is the great potential of human existence truly revealed. Only in this friendship do we experience beauty and liberation. It's very clear. It's very beautiful. Okay, it's very. That's what he keeps coming back to. It's similar to Pope John Paul II in a sense, but he has his own style. He has his own way of approaching it. Okay, keep going. Yeah, and so another kind of central axis of his talk is that we are relational. We are never alone. We never flourish by ourselves. Written into the structure of our being is relation. Okay, it's part of our DNA. We're relational. Okay, man is a relational being. And if his first fundamental relationship is disturbed, his relationship with God, then nothing else can truly be in order. This is where the priority lies in Jesus' message and ministry. Before all else, he wants to point man towards the essence of his malady, his sickness, and to show him, if you are not healed there, then however many good things you may find, you are not truly healed. Okay, so if we're not truly relational, if we're not truly in relationship with God, with our fellow human beings, even with ourselves, we don't find out who we are. Okay, we don't realize our potential. We don't have that liberation. We don't have that beauty. Okay, keep going. Yeah, it is inherent in man to be a relational being. He is not an autarkic, kind of by himself, self-sufficient being who develops alone in isolation. Without relationship, in an unrelated state, he would destroy himself. Okay, interesting. And it is precisely this basic structure of his being that reflects God. Okay, because we're relational, we're somehow images, we're signals towards God. Okay, we're signs of God, or images of God in the world. Okay. For this is a God whose essential being, in just the same way, rests on relationships, as we learn from the doctrine of the Trinity. Okay, keep going. So the basic structure of ourselves. Okay, you can skip that maybe. Okay, okay. No, maybe go back. Let's see. Yeah, go back. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about faith then. Okay, he talks a lot about faith as well. Okay, he says faith is not an illusion, a flight of fancy, a refuge or sentimentalism. You know, it's not escapism. Okay, rather, it is total involvement in the whole of life, and is the proclamation of the gospel, the good news that can set the whole of the person free. So, okay, again, this kind of existential thing in the self, you, your depths, your potential, your beauty, okay? Faith in Jesus Christ is of its nature a continual opening of the self. It is God's breaking into the world of human beings, and the response of human beings breaking out toward God, who at the same time leads them to one another. It's a nice way of putting it, okay? God is breaking in, we're breaking out, and in breaking out we meet each other, okay? Breaking out of our bunkers, okay? Our horizontal way of looking, or maybe our secular, de-Christianized European way of looking, okay? You could say that maybe that's what he's getting at there, okay? Another one, okay, the power of littleness is part of his theology as well. The theology of littleness is a basic category of Christianity. After all, the tenor of our faith is that God's distinctive greatness is revealed precisely in powerlessness. That in the long run, the strength of history is precisely in those who love, which is to say, in a strength that, properly speaking, cannot be measured according to the categories of power. So in order to show who he is, God consciously revealed himself in the powerlessness of Nazareth and Golgotha. Thus, it is not the one who can destroy the most who is the most powerful, okay? And maybe we think that way ourselves, okay? But on the contrary, the least power of love is already greater than the greatest power of destruction. You see how he's able to put things together? Okay, the great power, the atomic age, the nuclear age, okay, the progress of science and technology, and yet the little spark of love is more. Okay, it's good writing, you know, as well as theology. Keep going. Yeah, here's another. I might end on this and we'll see how we go, okay? So this is another way, and it's a very beautiful piece. Again, just look at this as writing, okay, as well as theology, okay? the infinitely pure, okay? He's talking about the passion of Jesus. He says, in Jesus' passion, all the filth of the world touches the infinitely pure one, the soul of Jesus Christ, and hence the Son of God himself. While it is usually the case that anything unclean touching something clean renders it unclean, here it is the other way round. When the world, with all the injustice and cruelty that makes it unclean, comes into contact with the infinitely pure one, then he, the pure one, is the stronger. Through this contact, the filth of the world is truly absorbed, wiped out, and transformed in the pain of infinite love. Because infinite good is now at hand in the man Jesus. The counterweight to all wickedness is present and active within world history, and the good is always infinitely greater than the vast mass of evil, however terrible it may be. Okay, another fantastic piece of writing, okay? God has come into world history, okay? It's not abstract, it's not a formula, okay? It's incarnation, okay? He is God, so he's infinitely greater than any evil, any mystery of iniquity that we book. And, you know, that's the count. It's not a balance between good and evil. Evil is completely outweighed, okay? Even in the power of littleness, okay? Even in the pure, infinite love of Christ. Okay. We'll try one more, okay? See how that goes. Okay, yeah, so this is probably a good one to give you kind of a sense of it, okay? Again, Jesus Christ does not teach us a spirituality of closed eyes, but one of alertness, one which entails an absolute duty to take notice of the needs of others and of situations involving those whom the gospel tells us are our neighbours. The gaze of Jesus, what his eyes teach us, leads to human closeness, solidarity, giving time, sharing our gifts, and even our material goods. Okay. You know, it's not an absorbed, self-centered spirituality. Christianity is not this. If we truly encounter the Lord, Jesus, it breaks us out of the kind of the egg, you know, the kind of inside the shell, you know, of ourselves. Okay, it brings us into relationship. That's the basic structure of who we are. Okay, so when there's good relationship, when there's human closeness, solidarity, giving time, there's what the world needs, what human beings are programmed for, in a sense. It keeps coming back to that. Okay, so what kind of a spirituality do we get as Christians? Well, we get this kind of one. It kind of wakes us up. It challenges us. It provokes us. It won't let us just stand there, okay, and absorb and take and feed. Okay, it asks more. Okay, that's maybe enough because there's a lot of content in those slides. Okay, it's not the whole talk, but it's enough, I think. Okay, do you want to? Yeah, turn on the lights. Okay. Any questions or thoughts on it? Any comments? Or I do, because people don't often know his theology, and I was very influenced by it, and I just maybe kind of share it with you, some of it. Okay, got to go. Yeah. Hit me. Thoughts?
So this is from different pieces, like general audiences that he gave us?
Yeah, it's different writings of his. Yeah, they're kind of nuggets in his writings, you know. There is a system there, you know. He has ways of putting things, you know. He's Christ-centered. He's existential. He's deep. He's trying. One of the keys. He's trying to talk about faith to modern man. He's trying to talk about faith in modern culture. So that's why you have things coming from modern culture always into his when he talks about faith. It gets easier to grasp, you know, that kind of way. That's his genius, actually. It's to talk about faith in modern times, you know.
What's the difference between him and JP2?
There's a lot of continuity between the two. John Paul II is more philosophically trained. He's a philosopher. He's an ethicist. But Benedict XVI is a much more comprehensive theologian. Like, he understands the whole tradition in a more encompassing way. John Paul is very deep and meditative, okay? You can get lost in his thought, you know, what's he saying? Where are we going in this? Where do we get out of this, okay? That's true, you know, people get lost in the kind of Wojtyłan fog, okay? They don't know. Yeah, they don't know where they're going. And his biggest fans, they get completely lost. They don't know what he's on about, okay? Not with Joseph Ratzinger. He's very succinct. You know, Charlie Brown, who was the papal nuncio here before, he said they'd be doing some complicated document in the Vatican, because Monsignor Charles, he worked with him, you know, in the CDF, and he said he could make the changes to the document. There'd be kind of complex changes and little things need to be nuanced, whatever. He would have it. He'd know it in his head. He could make the changes orally himself. He says he's such an intelligent man, you know. And a friend of mine, a Dominican, was going on a flight. I don't know where he's going, maybe Poland or Switzerland. I don't know where he was going, but economy class. Sitting beside him, Joseph Ratzinger. And he said to me, it was a good job I was wearing my collar, you know. So he asked him a question then at the end. But economy class, you know, and, you know, he's, I think we should know more about Joseph Ratzinger. He's just a fabulous mind, fabulous thinker, and fabulous writer, you know. I'm sure a very holy man as well, you know, but we'll see what the church will say in time, you know. Any thoughts? No? Is it kind of new to you? You wouldn't probably be aware of it, Dominic?
Which writings of his would be good to start with?
Read his interviews. Read the interviews he gave. He gave, one of my favourites is Salt of the Earth. I just couldn't put that down. I got it on retreat one time. I just couldn't put it down. God in the World is another larger one of his interviews. Like all his, Vincent Toomey was telling me that his thoughts are in the interviews. Okay, I'm reading the Ratzinger report at the moment. That's a bit different. I'm only starting it, but the interviews, that'd be a good place to start. Yeah, or there's one of them he wrote as an early theologian, Introduction to Christianity. Now that's heavy going. I mean, that's not easy, but like he's an early theologian kind of, but it's very original piece of work. Okay, so that would be one if you have time for that one. Okay.
Father, what would you say would be his legacy? Like we have Theology of the Body from JP2. We have
Yeah.
What would you say would be Pope Benedict?
Faith in the modern world. Faith among modern people. How to be authentic, credible, deep and human in today's world, and have Jesus as well. I think that his writings are, he wanted to continue his writings. It's not like, he's not like John Paul is the big personality, you know. Like Father Harris says, he's like John Paul is the big showman, you know. He'd get the crowds like 7 million in Philly, and he'd start swirling a cane and they'd be going crazy, you know. Like he's all that charisma. Okay? And people didn't get this, that when Benedict came in, like Benedict is a priest. Okay. He's very priestly. Okay, he's very much he's celebrating the Mass and he's not distracted. Okay? Like it's a different personality, you know. But the same truth is coming through them both. They would, I think when he was CDF prefect, they would meet perhaps maybe once a week. And, you know, and I mean, Joseph Ratzinger is a much more informed theologian, you know. So he probably kept John Paul on track. Because John Paul is so charismatic, you know, wanting to kind of move the church in this direction. And Joseph Ratzinger has to pull him back a bit, you know. You know, so it's that, you know, and someone said, I would love to be a fly on the wall at those meetings, you know. Do you know what I mean? Like even the thing on the ordination of women, I think Pope John Paul II wanted to make what was an infallible, infallible statement on it, okay? But Joseph Ratzinger, I'm told, said it's not of primary importance. Like it's not the doctrine of the Trinity. So the ordinary magisterium can make a pronouncement, but you don't have to. It's not the highest level of teaching. Things like that, that. So then it came out as a teaching of the ordinary magisterium, okay, not a ex cathedra, okay, teaching of the Pope, okay. So there's a difference, but things like that, what comes out of the Vatican, it needs great minds, and it needs there were two great minds there, at that time in the church, but they're very different in style and content and writing and approach. It took a while. I think it took people a while to get used to Pope Benedict. I remember when I was actually in Rome when he was elected, 2005. I was living in Rome at that time, and it was like an earthquake in Rome because we knew there was white smoke, and everyone was going to the Vatican, running like buses stopped. People are just running in one direction. It was like earthquake. These films. And he came out onto the window. And he took the name pen, and we were Dominicans because we said theology. Brilliant, all that, it's just us. We knew because he knew as a writer and all that, But Father Johnny, who was in Ireland at the time, he says that the women in his parish, wherever he was in, somewhere in Dublin, says, he has lovely hair. so there can be different reactions, Yeah, so that's it, he's one of my favourites. He's a big influence on me, so I could go on all day about him, But he's probably not as well known in a sense, but his legacy are his writings. Read his writings and get really jewels of theology written in a modern vernacular in a way that you can actually access it.
Why was he called the Rottweiler?
Because if there's something pure and good on the throne of Peter, you have to throw mud at it. You have to make a caricature of it, just awful. That's evil, He's nothing, like anyone who knew him, he would even stop for people in the square. He used to cross the square at a certain age when he was cardinal. Everyone knew him. He was very gentle. He's very humble. He wasn't a big head. He wasn't a swelled head theologian, even though he's a brilliant scholar. He was very humble. He could talk about anything. And so the German Shepherd or the Rottweiler. Now, in popular culture, lots of people believe that. Yeah, it's how influence and how the propaganda gets through. I remember one time just being at a friend's house. I was called for dinner there, and one of their friends was there who would be kind of into faith a small bit, and he says, the Rottweiler. I couldn't believe it. Like he wouldn't be anti him, but he picked this up in culture, and it's nothing to do with the man. And that's why, okay? Because if there's something really good and pure there, you have to throw mud at it, Yeah, it wasn't anyone who knew him or met him personally, or there's lots of anecdotes as well, But he's not the showman. He's not the showman of Pope John Paul II. He doesn't have that big personality, charisma. It's a very different, refined, gentleman, shyness that's there,
I think his point about, us being relational.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of the core of a lot of issues today in the modern world.
Yeah.
Because young people in particular are being told, do whatever makes you happy and don't mind anyone else.
Yeah.
And live your own life, on your own terms. It's all about kind of the individual,
Yeah.
And I suppose that's why a lot of people become depressed, and not just in terms of because they're not thinking of other people, but they're detaching themselves from God as well.
Yeah.
They don't see themselves as being a child of God. They just totally they don't even think about God as part of their lives. So that detachment from other people and from God.
That's it.
That kind of that's the source of a lot of problems today.
Yeah.
So it's a good reminder.
Yeah, it's good. He was trying to teach authentic spirituality. Like bogus spirituality is you be you. You do you. Okay, or it's kind of catchphrase. I'm okay. You're okay. It's just what's that mean? Do you understand? Bogus spirituality. It doesn't really bring us into relationship with others. Our authentic relationships are, okay.
Bogus?
Bogus, false. Okay. Pop psychology, sometimes pop psychology as well, Yeah. Is that okay? There can be good things in psychology, just it's about, okay, but popular stuff can be pretty, shallow,